Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Hope you've had a great weekend. It's Sunday. I wanted to do a little bit of a brief episode. This is not going to be a long one, but I did want to update on the Rex Heuermann case with some things that have happened over the weekend. And tomorrow, I'm going to be covering a new trial for the podcast, Taylor Schabusiness. I'm going to give a little bit of a very brief background on the case. I assume tomorrow in openings we'll get a much bigger picture, and I don't want to be repetitive, but it is wild, y'all. It is just a horrific case, and I was deciding between two different ones. A lot of people really wanted this one covered, so I've decided to do that. It's expected to last about a week, and anyways, we're going to get into that in just a second. Music fact of the day. The band Toto got their name from the Latin words in toto, which means all-encompassing. With the significance of that selection being the band brought together so many different genres and areas of specialization that they could and did do anything and everything. Remember, they were session musicians before they formed their band, and I love Toto. They have their number one's album is great. Also, thanks to everybody who's donated this weekend. I really appreciate you guys. I got to upgrade a couple of pieces of gear, so that will go towards replacing some things here just to improve the podcast a bit. Rex Heuermann. So allegedly, cops have found a soundproof room in the basement of his home. They've also brought in cadaver dogs, a backhoe, and ground penetrating radar to look for possible remains or any kind of trophies that might be in Rex's backyard. They actually began digging late this afternoon with that backhoe, according to News 12 Long Island. They've been on the property now for a total of 11 days. That started the evening Rex was arrested. You remember they had somebody there kind of in the shadows. As soon as they arrested him, they went in to start the search warrant on the house. A neighbor of Rex's told the New York Post that Rex was a wacko. He also said he was told cops plan to dig all of this potential soundproof room out in what a state trooper called a major excavation. Today, law enforcement officers told the New York Post they're looking for any evidence that might suggest any of the victims have been killed in the basement. He said nothing yet. Of course, we know they're not going to tell us half of what they found. And I have to say, some of the things that we have seen come out of this house have been very disturbing, such as that life-size doll. You have this painting of a battered woman. They were looking at some film negatives and things of that nature. I can't imagine what they found in there. Kathy Huber, who went to high school with Rex, said neighbors are okay with the disruption in the neighborhood, saying, we don't care how long they have to be here. This is a big community of cops and firemen, and I find it hard to believe that anybody in this neighborhood would be angry that cops are taking their time and doing a good job. With these girls, with these victims, please take your time and get justice for these women and these families. We don't care how long this has to be there. It's nice to see that they are understanding of the process, and ultimately that is the goal, to gather enough evidence for a successful conviction, because these women and their families deserve it. Investigators were seen dismantling a wooden deck and also digging by hand in the backyard over the weekend. They removed cement tiles and emptied out a storage shed. They were seen yesterday still carrying out brown bags of evidence and removing a shovel, a rake, and electric gardening tools from a storage shed. Those items were bagged as well and taken in as evidence. They showed several hedge clippers laid out on a tarp. Those were taken as evidence as well. The police commissioner, Rodney Harrison, said this is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation, but the team effort is helping us get to a place where we could present it to the district attorney and put this gentleman away for a very, very long period of time, adding that the investigators would likely be done at the home in the next few days. A friend of Rex's wife talked to News 12 Long Island and said the family really just seemed normal. And she said she does not think that his wife knew anything about Rex's alleged double life as a murderer. Other neighbors kind of have a difference of opinion, saying, I'm just wondering how the wife had no idea about this. You just can't do all this and be able to keep everything a secret, although it is common, and we have seen it, where family members of serial killers are shocked when they find out what their loved one's being accused of. People are very good at leading double lives. You don't know the dynamics inside that household. And it could be that everybody knew that room was off limits for whatever reason. I'm sure a lot of it's going to come out, but I'm never quick to say that the spouse knew or the kids knew because it's not fair to them. We don't know their story. We know she's filed for divorce and that the family is embarrassed and disgusted and everything you would imagine. And I'm sure that they're probably getting their fair share of trolling from people who just assume that they were all in on it, which usually isn't the case with stuff like this. A forensic expert, Dr. Lawrence Kobalinski, said that even though 13 years have passed since these women were murdered in Long Island, mitochondrial DNA can survive elements because there's so much of it. He told News 12 Long Island that the one chance you have to do a forensic DNA analysis is mitochondrial DNA. So they're looking for hair. Hair is everywhere at a crime scene, and they may find garments that they can't identify as being his wife or his daughter's. They can do mitochondrial DNA comparison to tell the origin and to see if there's a match to any of the victims. The big challenge, obviously, is that 4 people lived in that home as well as at least 4 pets. He went on to say it's probably the most difficult part of the whole process because if you don't collect properly, you're not going to get your results, even after you analyze whatever you've got. The other thing is you can't overwhelm a lab with thousands and thousands of items. So they're having to really be selective about what they're sending in for DNA analysis. And especially with 4 people and 4 animals in the home, it's got to be a tedious job to try to find exactly what they're looking for. He also said after entering Rex's DNA into a statewide database, it's possible they would know by now if he was linked to any cold cases where they had DNA but no matches. A New York State Police Troop commander said there were many things that could not be done because had they been done, Rex would have been tipped off. Now that Rex has been arrested, there's probably even more work to be done in the way of search warrants that you're well aware of being executed and interviews that are going to be conducted of different people, including family and friends. Sheriff Errol Toulon Jr. told News 12 he's visited Rex 3 times in jail. Twice, Rex was sleeping, and once he was just looking up at the ceiling. He said he was very quiet and didn't have much to say. He's had no visitors from family or friends. His next court appearance is scheduled for August 1st. By the way, 1 week from today, I will be flying up to Idaho to cover sentencing for Lori Vallow. And I'm very happy that I get to cover this for Law and Crime and see this come full circle with her sentencing, to hear those victim impact statements. And I love the fact that she has to sit there and listen as Kay and whoever else. We know Vicky, who is Tammy Daybell's aunt, has been allowed to be a voice for Tammy in a victim impact statement. So I will be there for Law and Crime and also updating you here on the podcast. I do plan to go by Chad's property to pay my respects and also to the townhomes, just hit a few places that are significant in the case. I can't imagine how heavy it's going to be to stand right there where these sweet children were found, and also right there where Tammy was killed in that very house that apparently some of Chad's kids are still living in, even though John Pryor owns the deed to that house. So let's hop over to this Taylor Schabusiness trial that starts tomorrow. I'm going to be doing my normal every day. I'll give you the day's testimony in an hour or less. The backstory, this is a very disturbing and graphic case, so I'm going to have to tread very lightly. Trigger warning before I start this. This is pretty graphic stuff. It's not pretty. No murder case ever is. This one is just a little bit extra as far as the details. But Taylor, who is 25, is charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault in the February 2022 killing of Shed Thyrion. She was ruled competent to stand trial just last week after a second evaluation was done. Get this, y'all. Shad's mother discovered his head in a bucket in the basement of her home, along with his private parts. Prosecutors say that Taylor admitted to dismembering his body. It's not a question of whether she's guilty. It's more of she is claiming mental defect as part of her not guilty plea. As the house was searched, they found body parts in other bags, boxes, storage containers in the basement, and also found one of his legs inside of her car. They found several kitchen knives in the basement. Taylor was found on the other side of town at an apartment complex the morning of the discovery. She had blood on her shirt, her pants, and her hands. She stopped when she saw authorities, and when asked if she knew why they might be there, she said, "Because of my warrant for my arrest." She was brought to the station, and they noticed that she had a cut on her thumb and scratches on her arm and her hand. When officers told her what they found, she allegedly said, "That's effed up." But she did admit to killing Shad. The medical examiner said Shad died of strangulation, and according to Taylor, this happened during a sexual encounter between the two. She described the victim as being face down, and she was using a chain to strangle him. At one point, the victim began coughing up blood, and she said she was just waiting for him to die. She said she was already this far in and kept going. At one point, she said she blacked out and woke up and realized that his face had turned kind of blue or purple, and she kept going. She said she just went crazy. She said that using things to asphyxiate during intimate moments was common for them. Apparently, they had been smoking meth, and she was high on meth when this happened. She said she kept pulling and choking, but he would not die. She said after 3 to 5 minutes, he passed away, and she said she just went crazy. After he died, she did unspeakable things to his body for about 2 to 3 hours afterwards. She's accused of sexually assaulting his body during this time frame. While in the interrogation room, she was heard saying, "The head. I can't believe I left the head, though." She also told investigators to have fun looking for all of the organs in the basement. She said, "Yeah, I liked it," and asked the investigator if they knew what it was like to love something so much that you kill it. She said she had planned to bring all of the body parts to her van, but she said she got lazy and forgot the bucket that had his head and his private parts in it. They also found part of his leg inside of a crock pot. I cannot believe some of this stuff, y'all, that we talk about on here. It is just insanity. She said the two of them had smoked meth the whole day, but the 911 call came into Green Bay police on February 23rd of last year at 3:25 a.m. by Shad's mother. When officers arrived, she took them down into the basement, and an officer saw a towel over a bucket by the basement stairs. He lifted the towel and saw Shad's head and other body part inside. There was visual evidence of strangulation, and also inside the bucket were body fluids and 2 knives. More remains were found in the basement in shopping bags. His upper torso was found in a storage tote, as well as several of his organs. The torso had numerous cuts to the right side, and there was evidence that some cleanup of the crime scene had been attempted. The mother said she last saw Shad alive on February 21st at 9:30 p.m. when he left the house with Taylor. The mother's boyfriend remembered Taylor and Shad coming home and going into the basement where they stayed the entire next day when she said they were smoking meth. Sometime between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m. on February 23rd, Shad's mother woke up after she heard the basement storm door being slammed. She got up and heard Taylor's van drive off. She saw that the basement light was still on, and she went to see if her son was home or if he had left with Taylor. And when she was in the basement, she didn't see anybody, but that's when she made the very grisly discovery. I cannot imagine the trauma his poor mother must deal with every day. Taylor made news in February when she attacked her attorney in court. She had to be wrestled to the ground by deputies. She was angry that her attorney told the judge he needed more time for a defense expert to review the case to testify about her competency. She had been ruled competent last year. Her attorney said that he intended to get a second evaluation done. And just last week, the judge did say she was competent to stand trial. That begins tomorrow, first thing in the morning. She's pled not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. So I'll be bringing you that every day. Very gruesome case. It's kind of one of those that I don't necessarily like covering, but at the same time, Shad's story needs to be told, and a lot of interest from the listeners in this one. I've gotten some emails and texts about what I was covering this week. I put out on social media a couple of different ones, and more people knew about this one and was more interested in following this one this week. So we will start that tomorrow. If there's any updates with any of the other cases, such as Rex Heuermann, that happens, I'll do an additional small episode that day or for whatever case, if anything were to break. So I just wanted to give you this small backstory on the trial that we're covering tomorrow. You guys can decide whether or not you want to do a little rabbit hole yourself tonight and research the case a bit more. Usually the openings are full of information and tell the story. So I didn't want to do a very long backstory, not be repetitive tomorrow when we're doing openings and those first witnesses. So that's it for tonight. I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.